Welcome. It's for you tonight. This is our first public outreach meeting. We'll have another one next week as well. That'll be down at the Rattlesnake Ridge Elementary School. Just to give you some facts about our system, we have about 218 miles of water mains. You'll see we have 106 sewer mains, then the fire hydrants, manholes, and roughly about 13,000 customers on the water side and about 8,000 on the water reclamation side, which we strive for safe, reliable drinking water. And all of our folks that work for, or most of our folks that work for us are either on call, but we're supplying 24/7 service at about less than 2 pennies a gallon. So why the rate increase? So our last rate study was done in 2019. So our last rate study was from, our rate increase was from 2020 to 2024. So in this last year, 2025, there were no rate increases as we were doing our rate study, which we're here today to talk about. The reason for this is looking back at 2020, that was before COVID, or during COVID, prices increased. We had a bunch of inflation as well. So during this increase, it kind of captures all of that as well, because if we were to stay at the revenue that we're getting today, the funds wouldn't be sufficient to maintain the systems that we have out there on both the water and water reclamation systems. So the recommendation is annual increases on both the water as well as water reclamation side. Some of the factors that are affecting the rate increase, a lot of folks these days are conservation folks. So some folks actually have at their house, they'll have barrels to collect water and utilize in their backyard to water their plants. Inflationary pressures that we saw took place over the last 5 years and are still growing, still going. And then regulatory, so that would be our PFAS component. So the regulators by 2030 that we have to take PFAS out of our drinking water. Like I had mentioned early on, that the town commits to having fair and reasonable prices for our water. We take a very good deep dive at anything that's related to our rate increases. We want to have safe and reliable drinking water and high quality of service for not only today, but looking into the future tomorrow. So we're going to go ahead and step into all of our rate study findings. Step one, you have to have a baseline of what your revenues are. So we go through and we look through the revenue projections. That's our existing rate structure. We start there with what those rates are. Then we take in growth. What does the growth look like in our community today and tomorrow? So each year, what we're projecting is about 480 homes per year. So that's on the water side, and on the sewer side, it's about 400 homes per year. So some of the homes in our community have both water and sewer. Some of the homes just have water, and then others have Tucson water and Pima County wastewater. So we kind of have a mix of folks within our systems. So like we talked about inflation, you'll see the arrow over there on the chart. 2019, the inflationary rate was about 2%, which has been kind of the average. Then you see it peaked up over 6%, and now we're kind of on the downward slide some, with it kind of peaking up a little bit. So we're definitely higher on the inflation scale than we were back in 2019 when the rate study was taking place. The next step is we look at all of our operating expenses. We start with our approved budget that we got from council, and then we add in what is that going to look like beyond fiscal year 2027 and beyond. What does that inflationary incremental look like, and make those adjustments. We then look at forecasts of positions. So we look at what do we need when our systems expand, how many folks do we need to maintain our system on both sides of the house. And then those people also need equipment and vehicles to do the work that they need to do. We factor in our operations and maintenance on water quality, water as well as wastewater, and also contracted services, because we do a bunch of it in-house, but we can't do everything in-house. So we have to contract contractors and engineers and other services to help us out. Some of our contracted services are the meter replacement program. We had started that where we're updating all of our meters so that folks can see the latest and greatest information. So if you have a water leak, hopefully you'll be able to detect it sooner than what you have before, where you're waiting until you see the big spot bubbling up out of the ground. Hopefully you'll be able to detect that much sooner. UV maintenance, you'll see the picture on the left is some of our folks doing that. And I wanted to mention too, all these dollar amounts are just approximate. Sometimes depending on, it'll go up or down. One big program that we have is our well rehabilitation program. So we look at least one well per fiscal year. And then on the same side, we look at the reservoirs. So we'll have divers go in and look at one of the reservoirs to check for any inefficiencies in the reservoir. And from that will come out what our programs are moving forward. If we need to have a project to fix anything, take one offline to fix it. That's how we build our program. Service line replacement. So when a line breaks in a community, if it's one on this street and then maybe it's the next one over and it keeps going on down the line, we'll look at that. Instead of band-aiding everything, we'll put together a program so that we replace that whole line. So instead of having multiple breaks constantly, we'll try to look ahead and fix that entire line. Water reclamation side of the house, we have a manhole rehabilitation program where we go out and look at all the manholes to see what shape they're in, and if we need to replace them, we put them in line to be replaced the next fiscal year. Same thing with the sewer cleaning. You'll see on the bottom picture there, that's like a little robot camera that goes through the line after we've cleaned it and looks and inspects all the lines for any cracks or inefficiencies. And that's where on the sewer side, we can also figure out what piece of pipe might be deficient that we need to fix and put that project together. And then the same thing goes for our lift stations. We look at those. The big one on the water side is the PFAS. It's those forever chemicals that are in our water that we're trying to pull out, and we're mandated to pull out by 2030. So the wells, we have 2 wells currently that are equipped with PFAS treatment. And as you see here, we have 4 others that are on the docket ready to be designed and then constructed. These are approximate dollar amounts that we're looking at for construction. And then depending on where they are in the system, some will go into our rates, our part of the rate study, if it's going to help the existing customers. But then in other areas, if it's for future customers, that goes into our impact fees. So growth pays for growth, and then existing customers pay for their portion. So the rate recommendation, if we stay where we are today, we're not going to have sufficient funds to keep moving on with all of the fixes and maintenance to move forward with our department. So the recommendation is on the water rate side is to increase it 10.5% per year. And on the water reclamation side, that's 2.5% a year. And to compare us between the other entities, this kind of gives you a little snippet to look at between Chandler on the lower end and Sahuarita on the higher end. And you'll see the blue is for water and the black side is the reclamation. So you'll see Marana's not the most expensive, but not the cheapest. And then we wanted to put together what a typical bill looks like. So if it's an average house of 4, typically a person will use 50 gallons per day. So the math equation that's down there gets you to about 6,000 gallons. And then we threw in another 1,000, say you have to go outside and water your plants, you use 1,000 gallons outside in your backyard. The impact on that is about $7 a month for the first year. And then you'll see the next one, it's just about $7.50 a month and carries on. So that comes down to, in 2026, it was less than 2 cents a gallon. And then all the way up to 2030, which would be the last year of this rate increase, would be just over 2 pennies a gallon. A couple other things we wanted to highlight is that we do have payment plans to help customers with. So if you have a life event happen, you end up in the hospital, have a car wreck, anything like that, that we're here to help you. So you could call our customer service folks and they'd be willing to help you. One of the other programs that our community services department has, it's a grant, and it's $500. So if you qualify for that, it's $500 a year that you could utilize not only for your utility bills, but say TEP, electric, gas. So that's another thing we wanted to get out there in case some folks needed to use that assistance. Some future things that we're looking at, just like TEP, is the budget billing. So kind of paying that same amount month after month and then truing up at the end of the year. And then the Roundup program we're looking into, that would be, say, that kind of pay it forward. So if your bill is, say, $56.50 and you want to round up to $57, that 50 cents would go into a bucket where if those that qualify for this Roundup program would be able to utilize those as assistance to them. I just want to give you the next steps of where we are. We had already presented to council back in October. So we are at step 3 right now, which is the first outreach meeting. And then next week will be step 4 with outreach meeting number 2 at Rattlesnake Ridge. And then the next time for the public to actually come and talk before council with your concerns would be the public hearing, and after that, hopefully adoption, which rates would then take effect February 6th. So the public hearing is January 6th, and then rates, if approved, would go February 6th. Just something I want to highlight if you didn't see it in your bill. We are putting out newsletters. We're trying to do them quarterly to kind of get more information out to our customers. So if there's something that you'd love to hear about, please reach out and let us know, and we'll add it into the next newsletter. With that, I'm happy to entertain questions.